need to put the
All
screen
right,
on.
so we are on.
Yes, and we on. Well, this is the very first words are belonging to me as one of the co-organizers of this webinar session, one of the series of webinar sessions provided by Julian Schulze from Mediavis, Pan-European Business Angels Network, an expert in field of startup ecosystems of making startups fit. And today's session is how to identify the right type of investor. The agenda for today and the time that we planned for today's session is 4 p.m. let's say 5 p.m. with some questions and answers to be followed after that. And the agenda is what is the Twist Digital and who is Media Deals, and a quick recap, financial sources, dealing with investors. And coming to what is the Twist Digital, if I could ask you, Julian, for the next slide because I cannot do it myself.
Yep. Here it comes.
We are here thanks to the Twist Digital project, which is an action that the Twist is the Horizon 2020 action. The project is co-founded by the European Commission, and it's under the Startup Europe program. We have a few other programs, maybe not programs, but similar projects like Twist in the EU. For your information, because we are just at the beginning of this Horizon 2020, this is the biggest EU research innovation program ever set up by the EU. And Startup Europe, which we are the part of, and thanks to it, we just right now can contribute the expertise and mentorship towards also you guys. Aims to strengthen the business environment for web and ICT entrepreneurs so that their ideas and business can start and grow in the EU. So this is more or less what is it Twist about. It involves, of course, few actions. It's about connecting the existing local web entrepreneurship ecosystems. In our case, those are the ecosystems in Rome, in Lille, in Stockholm, and in Warsaw. And the Twist itself aims at providing the new services for web entrepreneurs, focusing on scaling up and competing at the global market through the series of actions, instruments and actions. So this is how we do it today, so via the involvement of motivated mentors, by tailored access to the right type of finance, through the our partners and ourselves as well, who are fitted into this market, and have connections with VCs, seed and capital, and business angels capital. Yes, and I think those are the most important information for you. We will provide via the Twist mentoring and coaching. We will facilitate meetups, and we will organize challenges and roadshows. Especially challenges are important for you, as those are the opportunities for startups to provide the products or the services to big corporates. So we are planning that as well in the Twist program. I think that would be everything from my side. If you are interested to find out more, please follow us, what's happening in Twist, and check our website and also on Twitter and Facebook. I encourage you on that very much, and I please give the floor for you, Julian, and thank you very much, and take advantage of today's webinar as much as you can.
Thank you very much, Christoph. I'd like to welcome you all. It's great to recognize a couple of names already. Some of you have been joining us for the previous webinars, and some of us already engaged in the one-to-one meetings. So I'm happy to see you back, and want to quickly finish our little intro with reminding you what Media Deals is about, because I suppose most of you have heard this little intro session already. So this is a pan-European investor network that differs from many others by its focus, which is cross-border financing on one hand, and a sector expertise that you could describe with a focus on digital media and creative industries. This is quite unique, and we enjoy this kind of specialty focus because it gives us interesting opportunities to support investors who are not really acquainted with the subsectors in the creative industries, and do what Media Deals does since its foundation in 2008, which is trying to encourage and promote early stage equity investment, especially in the sector where we can identify high growth startup companies that really are exciting and pose an investment opportunity. Also, in this case, we like to invite you to find out more about us and also to get in touch with us if you like. You see the website down there. And now let's start to, if I can, start with a little recap. Because we need to remind ourselves first what this whole undertaking is about. Because as you remember, we started with looking at how to prepare a business pitch and how to kind of prepare yourself and your business proposition to convince investors that this is a valid, market valid proposition. Now, you might remember that the real currency we are talking about is not really euro or dollars or any other currency. The real currency that we are speaking about is trust. And this is really what investors are looking for. And this is what any presentation should kind of develop. Any engagement that you have with investors should aim for building trust so that they can quickly answer three basic questions first, which is obviously the first one being the most important one. Why is your business proposition a business? And this seems so obvious for entrepreneurs who are head over heels in their concepts and in developing the ideas and investing lots of time in moving forward. And you guys basically do not have the time to just sit back for a moment and to reflect upon the question, why is this a business? Because for you it is so natural and self-evident. For an investor it's not. And your proposition basically lays on the table like many others. So you need to be as convincing, probably more convincing. So this very simple question, why is your proposition a real business, is sometimes quite tough to answer, and it needs sound preparation in order to hammer out the most important elements. You could say this is far beyond the USP, also the kind of market reaction that you already created. This is part of the market potential that you have researched, and so on. And the next very simple question investors usually ask themselves first when they hear your pitch is this actually the right time to realize the product and or the service that you are proposing? There are several factors involved in this environment that we are in, a very quickly moving and changing environment, and the right moment can be crucial. If you are too early, all that investment that might be done could be wasted because you do not find people to adopt your products or your service because it is too fresh and too innovative. If it is too late, you already have too many competitors in the market and it's very difficult to stick out and to really make noise. So the right moment in a critical environment is especially difficult to reach, and it's certainly something that investors are very sensitive to. They are very careful and cautious about this momentum. And equally, the third question is something they are very concerned with, because the right team is necessary in order to put a fantastic concept, idea, product, whatever it might be, into practice and to realize it. Which means only if you have the right team and all the other two components are in place, investors will start to pay attention and they will start to develop an interest. That is important because it seems so obvious, and it is not as obvious in many pitches, because very often entrepreneurs do not really answer to these three key questions satisfyingly, and then lots of time is wasted on discussing kind of fundamentals. So this is important to bear in mind. And then you remember that investors want to get out of your pitch deck and your presentation which kind of track record you have. Do you already have something like success stories? Are you a seasoned entrepreneur? Did you already run several businesses? Are you someone who is a kind of serial entrepreneur maybe? Like they might be serial investors, they usually are. They absolutely focus on a good understanding on your side of who your target clients are, because that is key in making the connection to your actual sales potential. And that then should be expressed in realistic sales projections and revenue projections that are based on well-researched assumptions, on maybe conservative assumptions, because it's always good if things run much better than you anticipated. So it's always important to pay lots of attention to these points, because they will tell the investor, obviously also you, how you see your company and your projects evolve and how you feel that the market actually reacts to your proposition. So this is an important, you could say, barometer for investors to understand how you feel your company will be built and which obstacles you are meeting. So you could say basically that these projections, even though they refer usually to Excel tables, to spreadsheets full of numbers, they have quite a strategic meaning. And this is actually what investors are interested in. And in this context, obviously, they want to understand your distribution and your marketing strategy, because if your target clients do not know about your products and don't know how to find it, it's pretty much worthless. So this is, again, something that sounds pretty obvious and like a 1, 2, 3 counting. But then again, we often find that especially the aspect of marketing and distribution is a little bit underestimated in entrepreneurs' presentations. So it is important to pay attention to that and to make sure that investors understand how you connect with your client groups, who they are, obviously, and how you make sure that the distribution, the ways and the channels of distribution are the proper ones and are also fully functional. And you can imagine that investors also want to know if there's already someone on board, because they love to be joined by other investors. They don't like to be the first one or the only one. So it is always good if there's someone already part of your venture. This can also be a public body, but it's at that point already a little bit of a shared risk, and that is definitely positive. Now, you might remember that investors are after this, what is called traction, a reaction in the market that says, well, actually, what you do there is really meaningful, and the people you feel have a problem enjoy your solution, and they are very happy with paying the appropriate price for the solution that you are offering. So this kind of traction in the market that obviously then results into substantial sales is what they want to see. And they also want to see that you, as the entrepreneur, have some skin in the game. What does that mean? It means that you already engaged in some investment, that you have done your part in building the company, and that you are not looking for investors who actually pay your salaries, because this is certainly not what investors appreciate. They like to finance either products or steps in research and development and so on. We will look at this in a moment. So these are things that, as a little recap, hopefully give you the right mindset. And we asked investors we work with what they really look for or what they pay attention to when they hear entrepreneurs pitch. And they said, well, first of all, it is the business pitch itself that we are very interested in, and that tells us a lot because we learn about the personality of the person. We learn about how secure the person feels about the venture and the idea. We learn a little bit about the chemistry maybe, because all that has lots to do with the fact that people like each other or not. And this is no different in the relationship between normal people and investors and entrepreneurs. So it's an important moment. So the business pitch and the experience they have when you guys pitch goes beyond the numbers. It goes beyond the facts. There are lots of soft factors that they appreciate and are looking for. Match investment is the next important point. I mentioned that already. So this is something to highlight whenever you already have investors on board. It is important to make sure that these investors or investments are made transparent. And important for them is also the recoupment. When will they receive the money? What are the terms they receive it? When they receive it. All that is important because, again, you are competing with other companies, with other investment opportunities that these financiers have every day. So favorable recoupment position and terms are obviously important. And fourth, the exit strategy is key. And this is why mentioning the exit strategy in a business presentation early on makes all the sense in the world. Now, as a kind of summary, we can say that investors are searching for the management team that actually is able to deliver what they promise to deliver and what they actually want to deliver. And they want to see that this is a management team they can actually work with and also like to work with. It goes back to the chemistry, and that they feel they can bring added value to. Because investors, especially angel investors, and we speak about them in more detail now, are people that participate actively in building and developing a company. Secondly, they absolutely look for interesting businesses that introduce something innovative, and that can be innovative content, or it can be innovative processes that are made able by a software or whatever it is. So this innovation aspect is key, and this needs to be married with a profound business model. A business model that cannot be easily challenged and that is robust enough to also face a couple of challenges that the market will hold. And obviously a business that can scale. And this can mean geographical expansion later on. It can mean that a certain application can be used in different sectors and different industries, and so on. So the scalability of the business proposition is obviously very, very important for them, because this is where the high potential growth then actually is happening. And they want to see that the deal round that you are proposing to them is well thought through, so that the moment is right, the amount is right, that the deal terms are right, so that they feel this makes sense and that their role that you are offering them is a role that they feel they can play and like to play. Now, also important is that the valuation of your company is competitive and reasonable, and the terms, the deal terms, as mentioned, need to be, let's say, typical best practice, and they cannot be awkward. And important is also that your proposition, your business, your company fits into the investor's portfolio. And that can mean that you add value to companies they already invested in, because you might be complementary in what you do. Or maybe you introduce a solution that one of the companies they work with already can absolutely use. And you need to be comparable and comparable to their own values, which means your value set and the value set of the investors need to be pretty much the same. Excuse me, they cannot differ a lot, because this is a very deep and intense relationship that you are engaging in. And last but not least, the exit strategy, as we mentioned, needs to be in place. Not always do you know 5 years ahead of time before such an exit actually is about to happen, who the actual partner is, but there are usually some indicators, some typical actors in the industry that could potentially be some party that is interested in acquiring the shares of the investor. So these are the three, let's say, main things investors are searching for. And now let's turn our focus on the actual financing sources. And obviously, we cannot avoid stating that the good old revenues are quite often the best money to look for. And obviously, this is not always something that you have in place, because not always do you already generate enough revenues in order to build your business out of own cash flow. But obviously, that is the best, because this is money that comes at no cost, basically. No lending, no fees, no premiums, no shares. That said, we obviously want to look at at slightly more complicated reality of how the European investment landscape looks like. And you see now that you have overall a large group of players that are active between the seed and the expansion phase, and also engage in established companies. And so you see that at the very beginning, when you really start, it usually is sweat money. So it is your time and your effort that is lousily paid and goes in first. And then you might see with some amusement the 3F, the family, friends, and fools. They are usually the second source that comes into play. And we will look at that obviously in all more detail. But I just wanted to point out that these types of monies should not be neglected. And then you have often underestimated suppliers. You have many people around you, usually in businesses, that work with you and supply you with all different kinds of products or services. Also, suppliers can be very valuable investors. And some of you already know, because you have been going through competitions, awards and grants. Some prize monies obviously are always welcomed in especially the seed phase of a company, and government grants come into play as well in the context of competitions that some national bodies are running. And you see that the equity and the crowdfunding world is also active in the very beginning, where it is about the seed and then the startup phase of your companies. And you see an actor, the public banks, which have been more and more active in supporting startups in the past 5-6 years, and often created specialized funds within their portfolios to help startups at least reach the round A phase. So this is also an interesting actor here. And then you see basically a kind of gap because, and again, it needs to be stressed, this is the kind of European landscape of potential investors. We have more actors actually then again in the phase of expansion when investment volumes are around 5 million plus. We see family offices and strategic investors, obviously the venture capital suppliers, private equity, the equity market as such, and all along round A and B and until, I don't know, the eternities of lending money, we have the commercial banks that are happy to provide loans to those who already are in a kind of healthy, in parentheses, healthy stages. Now you see that this is quite interesting, which are the business angels and the super angels. The business angels are people who, as a person, have entrepreneurial experience. They have built businesses in the past, which they were able to successfully sell. And instead of I don't know, enjoying their hobbies 24/7, they decide to reinvest the money that they made in companies that they feel good about and that they feel have potential. Now, these business angels are individuals, basically like you and me, with the difference that they have probably more money than we do. And they do have this appetite for engaging in young companies and helping them to grow their businesses. And these business angels actually fill this gap that we have in Europe when we speak about investment volumes of around 500,000 to up to 5 million. And it is quite rare that, let's say, one angel or two angels are able to raise a 5 million round. Then usually either a group of business angels gets together to co-invest together, or you find super angels that are really, really already almost like a venture capital fund and are then kind of closing this gap. And I think this needs to be understood because, for example, the Anglo-Saxon room looks a bit different. But our reality is that for you, you will probably deal mostly with people in the first half of this table, of this graph. And the rest really those who have exponential growth opportunities and are really able to satisfy the venture capital appetite. They are rare in number, and it's nothing that you should anticipate being a financing source in the beginning. That comes into place quite late in the game. Now let's look at those sources in a bit more detail and look at the founders, you, with your sweat money and your bootstrapping and all that kind of self-exploitation that's going on, and the family, friends, and fools. Sometimes fools are lucky because they had the right instinct and invested money on the right horse or betted on the right horse. The money that you would attract from these actors obviously is dedicated to your early stage, the seed and startup phase of your company. And usually it is used for research, for building the prototype, or for developing the business model and making sure that it really works. There are some pros and cons in each of these financing sources. The benefits of working basically with the people you know, be it family members or friends, is that those investments usually happen quite fast, and that you do not have to build a lot of credibility because they already know you, they know how passionate you are about your business. So that is an advantage to many other sources of finance. And probably the drive of these people is a bit different than the motivation of a, let's say, pure investor, because they might share conviction with you and they might share a vision, and that is a very strong motivation and a very strong reason to partner up. And of course, there are some risks, like the strong and personal relationship might be challenged. You might even lose friends when things do not work out in the way that you hoped and anticipated. And usually, or not usually, but often, the deals come at an overpriced term because you feel you cannot really pressure them. They feel they need to get something out. So it can be tricky to find the right price, basically, for the money that you then receive. And there can be defaults. If, for example, a daughter of one of your family member needs, I don't know, some kind of expensive education or so, maybe then the investment motivation dries up a bit. Or if somebody encounters any difficulties, personal difficulties, then usually such an investment deal might not happen. If we move on and look at industry partners like those suppliers or maybe even clients, and it really, really makes sense to give a close look, take a close look at those people you are working with in your supply chains, is that they pretty much, they could be considered as potential investors throughout the whole investment phases, from seed to a moment where your company is an established company. And they usually provide finance for purchasing the products and the services that they actually provide you with, or sometimes also with giving you credit for such products and services. The benefits is that it can be quite reasonable, that type of financing. You also usually deal with people who already have a deep insight in your sector, so they are knowledgeable, which is very good. And this relationship, and you might see it as a risk rather than a benefit, but from the bird's perspective, being forced to think business-oriented can only be an advantage. So this is why this sits here as a pro. And the risks, again, are in challenging established and well-working relationships with those suppliers and clients. You might eventually experience conflicts of interests, and you could lose freedom, depending obviously on the size of investment that goes into your company. Now, then we have the banks that are obviously no investors. They lend money, and this is usually financing that goes into the business and operational development that is spent on developing products and making them better, amending them, fine-tuning them. And you would usually work with such bank loans in your Series A and B, and also when you are expanding. The benefit is, because it is a credit, it is a loan, you do not lose shares in your company. And again, it is a kind of indirect or maybe even a direct invitation to make sales, because you want to be able to easily pay the interests and the fees and so on the bank will be charging you. The risks involved are that once you apply for a loan, there needs to be a credit rating, so you will be rated, and that also not only can take time, but depending on the size of your company and your business, it can mean that banks are hesitant to really lend you money because you might be too small, or maybe you do not have enough collateral to give them the security they're after. These are traditional risks that every sector faces, unfortunately. If we look further into the set of awards that startups can receive, they usually are around are connected to competitions that you win, or to grants you apply to, or some government programs that you participate in. This type of money is again usually used for the operational development of your products and your business, or sometimes not untypically for market surveys. And you can sense it, that already means it's finance that makes lots of sense in the seed and startup phase. Again, this is, you could say, soft money, it's no equity. And that is very nice, and equity investors appreciate that. What is particularly interesting about it is that it gives you usually high visibility and free press, because it is a competition, because it might have this kind of national platform, so you will be known after that. And usually in tandem you get some free coaching to make your performance better, to increase the quality of your presentation. The downside is that it usually goes hand in hand with lots of paperwork. It's time consuming, and you have to engage in all kinds of activities that are everything but your core business. So everything that you fear around bureaucracy is something you usually experience when working with these actors. Now, crowd investment is quite hot in the last years, and is developing again traction and also robustness. And this is quite interesting, again, mostly for companies in the seed and startup phase. It is money that a crowd provides for the development of products, for example, or for working capital altogether, or for defining the business model. That can be very useful, obviously, when you get some funds and buy yourself some time to develop your business model in further depth. The benefits obviously are that you are dealing with a crowd, so there is a peer effect, and you might even access something like collective intelligence and people that share and engage with you way beyond a financial contribution. And also crowd investment usually has a very strong marketing effect, and that is something that can be strategically mobilized and used, and should. And it can also mean that by crowd investment, you not only have access to a large number of investors who all kind of sign small tickets. Often bigger angel investors and investor groups are scouting those crowd investment platforms to get some guidance which companies are interested. So you might even attract angel investment even though you are aiming for crowd investment if your proposition is really interesting. The risks involved still are that there are differences in the company valuation. So an equity investor will look at the company valuation quite different from the crowd that you might be working with here. There is still a lack of regulation in the German market that has been changed in the summer of this year. In many other countries, it's still a problem. And there's a problem in regards to the information that we actually have on the investors and amongst the investors. And sometimes we do not understand if, for example, each and every investor has one share, or just as an example, all the shares of the crowd are one in a kind of a deal that you then later make with an equity investor. Moving on to the business angels and super angels, I already spoke about a bit. They engage very actively in the seed startup and early series A and B. They are interested in helping companies with the development of their products, their services, their operability. They also help with problems that the management team might encounter. They often help with strategic alliances that they can put into place, with contacts that they can make possible, and often also with marketing. The benefits of dealing with business angels lies in the smart money they provide, because they are seasoned investors, seasoned entrepreneurs. They have usually a good understanding of the sectors they work in, and they can be of enormous help and support if they are a lead investor on the board of directors of your company. And often they bring not only the investor network with them to your company, they also bring their portfolio companies, which can be very interesting partners. They can be clients, they can be suppliers. So there's lots of interesting added value in those networks. The risks involved are that these processes take time, and there needs to be some due diligence involved. They are asking for high capital returns, and this is substantial and cannot really be negotiated. And they want to exit after a time period of maximum 5 years. We know from experience that investments sometimes are blocked for 7 years, but that obviously is a problem for many angels, as they then cannot access their funds to invest in other companies. And then there are strategic investors, family offices and funds, which are already a little bit differently positioned. They focus usually on the financing series A and B and the expansion phase. And the funding that you would access through them usually goes into the operational and product development. It's usually about hiring key talent that is quite expensive, and it can be a moment, or you can reach a moment in which you feel that you need to now move on. You have to quickly make a next step in order to position your company in the market environment differently, significantly, and in order to get ahead and to make this advantageous step that kind of brings you forward, you need this injection of money. The benefits of working with these types of investors is that there is traditionally a kind of entrepreneurial focus in family offices. So they understand you, they understand the problems, and they usually have been through similar things. And it gives you lots of exposure because of coverage, press coverage, because of internal network coverage. So there's lots going on once they get on board. The risk is that it's very difficult to identify them. There is no such thing as a website that summarizes where these strategic investors really are. So it's something that needs, you are in need of a personal introduction actually to connect to this type of financier. And then last but not least, we have the venture capitalists that look at the same stage, Series A, B, and the expansion phases, but they really look for exponential growth, and they really want to be part of moving a company either outside of its home market into a different geographical place. They want to boost the profitability. They want to prepare the company for an exit. The benefits are that once they are on board, it's really a shared risk for you and them. The benefits of their networks can be tremendous. But the downside, if you like, is that a priority VC may invest a lot of money, because this is what they do, which means that all of a sudden you have very quickly lots of money, which means there's lots of pressure, and you cannot risk to delay the exit. So there's a kind of clock ticking once they are on board, and steps have to be met, and it's quite rigid. And you can imagine that you will not be in control of your business as if you would be working with angel investors. Now, how do you find these different types of investors? First of all, there should be something like a general mapping on your side, where you review trade shows, that you visit, that you might research who universities are connected to and incubators. You research the networks that you have at your in your region. Basically, you turn to publications to find out who is active where and in what sector. And usually you find business angels and VCs in the communities they have been forming, investment communities like, for example, the European Business Angel Network or the European Venture Capital Association. These are typical bodies that are very communicative, that you can find online, and you can also understand who their members are. This is a very good starting point for this type of investor. And they also have several industry network events per year. You have several network events for your sector in which you might meet some of them. So their, let's say, investment forums, your trade fairs, and all the network activities around business angels, be it on the European level, on the national or regional level, are very good platforms to reach out to them. There's a Swiss-based investment network that's called Go Beyond. You remember that Media Deals is another much smaller and more specialized investor network. So there are several such actors out there. And there are online platforms like F6S, for example, or Gust, AngelList, Proceeder, Go Beyond again, or Euroquity, where you can sign up, where you can leave a profile, where you can research the profile of the investors and understand if there is a potential investor and financier out there for you who should contact. And of course, the chambers of commerce can be of guidance as well. The startup competitions and all what's going on around the world of grants and government funds obviously has lots to do with venture competitions, with conference meetings, all kinds of working groups, again, sometimes European level, sometimes national level. The yearly trade fairs are a good source to identify such competitions. Sometimes also you find multilateral banks like the Inter-American Development Bank, for example. That can be an interesting point of research for some who know that the American market is interesting for them. And there are government promotion agencies and regional development banks that we have all across Europe that usually have very interesting funds and programs to look for. The equity crowdfunding platforms are numerous. You probably are very aware of that. So the ones that are listed here are really just a few. It's an endless number. And to identify the best of such crowdfunding platforms has lots to do with the way they work, with any potential specialization they might have, and obviously also with a small print of the contracts. Because if you do not finalize your investment round, you certainly do not want to end up paying the crowd platform some fees. Now, in order to get acquainted with investors, you, as a kind of summary, would probably use all kinds of virtual and physical pitches. We, as Media Deals, engage in several such virtual e-pitches, which are a very good format, and I can only support anybody who thinks this is a valuable form of reaching out to investors. So even if you do not see them physically, that can be still very, very useful. Emails and phone calls are still obviously how do you say, a proven way of communication. You would get to know your investors more deeply during due diligence meetings, when you exchange the data that is necessary in order to proceed with entering in a deal. You would also learn more about them, you, and your product services while actually using them. And so in that phase of pilots and of betas and so on, this can be very, very interesting. And again, it is important to understand that meeting your clients, partners, and suppliers can mean that you are meeting your investors, your potential future investors. Now, how are we actually dealing with them? What do we need to pay attention to? There are some core questions that you should ask yourself, kind of looking back at what we discussed, which is what type of financing really makes sense for you? Would you rather talk to business angels or other sources? And if you think business angels are a proper source, what kind of business angels or maybe VCs? Do they need to be specialized? Do they need to be smaller? Do they need to be very strategic? Do you look for novice or experienced investors? Maybe for some that are already experts in your sector, or is that rather irrelevant and a generalist will do? Are you looking for someone who's passive, just a passive shareholder, or someone who actively engages in your business and supports you and tells you what he or she feels about certain decisions? So there should be key assessment criteria for you and deal terms that you feel comfortable with. And the question also is, are you looking for one or several investors? And if you're looking for a group of investors, what should the relationship be? Because first of all, they should get to know each other. It is crucial that investors know each other. And they ideally should be complementary, so not to create problems and kind of conflicts of interest. Other considerations go into the fact that, first of all, you should be focusing on growing your company. That should be your focus. So your investor should be aligning with that focus. And you should be realistic on the size of your funding round. That is also important. You need to raise enough finance to execute your plans, but it is good not to look for more. So state what you need, but don't look for, let's say, a financing round that you need a year after or 2 years after. And in case you are a fast-growing and profitable company, you might also think about options for shareholder liquidity, because often shareholders need to be able contractually to pre-sell before they exit some of their shares in order to maintain liquidity. So these are things to consider that help you keep and build a good relationship with your investors. And then there are some other aspects like to openly and swiftly address any questions that investors have. Because in the process of the due diligence that investors do with you, in which they ask you for all kinds of documentations about your company and past performance and so on, they will test you and they want to know how quick you reply, how open you are, and how transparent your business is. And if there are any weaknesses that you are aware of, any shortcomings, it is always advisable to directly state that and to make investors aware of it, because they actually might have the solution. It could be related to their expertise, it could be related to know-how that sits in one of their portfolio companies, and so on. So it is crucial to have no problem with sharing historic data, and to have no problem with the fact that investors want to actively engage in the life of your company, and they want to bring value as a member of the board. And that should be fine for you, and you should see it as a kind of added value and not a kind of challenge. It is key, obviously, to regularly communicate with investors, be it through reports, be it through newsletters, be it through dinners, whatever is feasible and makes sense. It is key to build this intensive working relationship and to maintain the sense of enthusiasm, because that is, you could say, next to the currency of trust, probably another very important currency, this excitement, this shared feeling we are doing something great. Not only the investor is doing due diligence on you, also you should prepare for doing due diligence on the investor. That is very, very important. So you want to understand what type of investor that is, an active one or a passive one. Did he or she already invest in similar companies like yours in a similar sector? Have the amounts be similar to what you are currently talking about? You need to, and I cannot repeat it often enough, forgive me for that, you need to think about the exit from the very beginning. Because again, such financing lasts for 3 to 5 years, and then an exit is important. And you should really make sure that you review the business and financing and exit strategies for all the shareholders, and not only look, let's say, into your interests and into what you would prefer, but you need to make sure that everybody is happy with the current situation and with the goals and aims you are creating. That said, let's have a little bit of a closer look at the due diligence that you would like to do on investors, because you want to understand actually if the investor can bring this added value. If the investor has the skills that you need in the areas where you need support in, and if the investor has the characteristics and the kind of let's say, coach and mentor gene that such a support actually requires? Or is this person rather about controlling things? Because that is obviously a big difference. And you want to understand if your investor already understands the constraints of startups, because it will be a roller coaster experience. There's never a smooth development, and they need to be prepared to see you change and you making U-turns and again change the tour or the course of directions, adjust, amend once more and once more. And all these processes, oops, I'm hearing myself. I don't know why. Oh, it's over, fine. And all these processes obviously have a frame, a jurisdiction that sometimes asks quite interesting details from investors, like accreditation criteria, for example, that can be related to their wealth or it can be related to their sector know-how. Sometimes they are required to present documents that meet anti-money laundering laws, and that can go into all the detail that you see here, from bank reference to the utility bill. So that is interesting and important to consider, because this is stuff that you need to do to make sure that you are working with the right person. And moving on, I think you all have been experiencing this already. Sometimes, often, maybe mostly, investors do not invest in you, and it is crucial that you do not take this personally, because such a rejection today, a no today, not necessarily means a no tomorrow. Your proposition today might not be suitable for them, but it might be tomorrow. Or maybe tomorrow you have a different business proposition, and if you go back to them, they might say yes. So it is key to understand that you want to benefit from each contact with investors, even if they do not say, cool, great, I want to invest in you. For example, you could get sales leads. And it is important to always think follow-up and to keep the investors you met informed of the development of your company. That should not be spam, that should not be anything unsubstantial, but whenever you do an important step and accomplish an important milestone, you should inform those investors, even though they might have turned you down once. And it is about really building personal relationships with your investor network over time, to make them personal friends and to win their trust and to make them confident in working with you. And that said, on a concluding note, we can say that fundraising is certainly very time-consuming. It is emotionally encumbering. But it is also important to remind ourselves that investors, especially angel investors, are allies. and they are there for you. They are on the team to support you, and they appreciate a clear communication from your side. Actually, they need to clearly communicate with you as well. But on your side, there should be a willingness to listen well, because you will hear opinions from outsiders that actually are a very valuable gift. As we saw, it is important to carefully analyze investors, because not everybody who says, I love it, I like it, might be the right investor for you. And you need to take some time in order to understand which contribution they can additionally make beyond the financing. So you could say it is about building trust, building enthusiasm, and to socialize and cultivate your contacts, because it is quite difficult to finance your company if you do not have an established relationship. It is impossible to do that on a cold call. So I think I used all the time of the hour, but I would be very happy to hear your questions. Do we have someone who is burning to ask a question? Please put your microphones on. I see they are muted with the exception of Christoph.
Yeah, unmuted for the moment, but I hope that the other guys are also going to do that as well. So I thank you, Julian. I mean, this is an excellent webinar again. I mean, just having a perspective in one place, and with your experience, having a comment on all the sources of investors, how to deal with them. I find it, although I'm a part of this business as well, but amusing anyway. Yes, so
Very
absolutely.
Good. Very good. Who is here and manages to switch on your microphone? Just do it for the sake of doing it. Yeah, I see Alessandra is on. Yes, Katarzyna is on. Very good. So it's working. I just wanted to see if the system gives us any problem and the silence is due to technical problems, or if you guys are actually silent because you are so happy. So please shoot. Any questions? Nobody.
Nobody this time. I do believe that they will, that the questions may come.
May come.
Then what I would just like ask you then, if what I would suggest then, after having this webinar, I will send to those who attend the meeting, the webinar today, the presentation, and then please put the notes. Maybe you can send them to us, and it's not about answering them via the email, but maybe on the next webinar we could do that, just having like a few minutes, of course, at the end and after the webinar, but just to follow up on with some answers to your questions if they will not be raised today. Do you find this Julian idea good? I think this is what also we could do.
Yeah, so that everybody has time to think about some questions, and then we can discuss this in the next session. I think this makes lots of sense. Sorry.
Time as well for to find and to raise the questions. Yes,
very true.
Yes. Guys, so I don't want to have like an inconvenient situation that we are talking. You're not, and especially you're not raising questions. So please give us a try. So can you? Or if not, then
yeah, I would do a little countdown. I would say the round for question is open. Time is going. Time is going. Time is going.
And maybe
time is gone.
Passed. Yes. Okay. Yes. I mean, it's of course, Julian, it's up to you. But I think that could be a good idea if you could just like rethink the presentation and think of your situation. Some of us is in the situation when they are looking for the investor, preparing for the second round, and where you are. I mean, this is a very good moment also to rethink the strategy maybe as well. So I think that after sending this presentation, I encourage you to put down the questions, send them to us. I will send it to Julian before the next webinar, and we will follow up with the answers after the next webinar.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Christoph. Thank you, everybody, for your time. It has been a pleasure. So I will now stop the recording, finish the meeting, and I wish you a very pleasant afternoon and evening. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.